The alarm bells rang across Nexus Prime Station. Commander Vexthal rushed to the control room, his 6 legs clicking fast on the metal floor. His bug-like eyes looked at the screen with worry. The message was short but scary. Human ship coming. Big warship. We'll be here in 6 hours. Vexthal felt cold fear run through his body. Humans were supposed to be dead. All of them. The Korvaxi Empire had killed them all 300 years ago. That was what everyone believed. The station buzzed with panic. Aliens from many worlds worked and lived on Nexus Prime. They had heard stories about humans. Old stories that parents told to scare their children. Stories about creatures that never gave up, even when they should die. Far away in space, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship. The UES Thunderstrike was the last human battleship. It had been hidden for many years in a secret place beyond the galaxy's edge. Jake looked at the stars ahead and thought about his mission. "Captain, the engines are working perfectly," said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez. She was the ship's engineer. Her hands moved over the control panels with skill. "This new quantum drive is amazing. We are moving faster than any ship in the galaxy." Jake nodded. Amy had worked for years to make their old ship better. She had taken parts from alien ships they had captured. Now the Thunderstrike was stronger than ever before. "How long until we reach the station?" Jake asked. Lieutenant Ben Carter looked at his maps. 6 hours, sir. We will arrive exactly when planned." Jake smiled. Ben was the best pilot he had ever known. The young man could fly through asteroid fields like they were empty space. Today they would need all his skills. The bridge was quiet except for the hum of machines. 200 humans worked on this ship. They were all that was left of their people. Their families had died in the Great War. Their homeworlds were empty ruins. But they had not given up. Dr. Lisa Thompson came to the bridge. She was the ship's doctor. Her face looked serious. "Jake, are you sure about this plan?" "We are risking everything." Jake turned to face her. Lisa had been with him for 20 years. She had saved his life many times. She was like a sister to him. "We have to try, Lisa. Our people are still alive out there. The prison worlds hold thousands of humans. We cannot leave them." Lisa nodded slowly. She understood. On distant planets, humans worked as slaves for the Korvaxi. They had been there for hundreds of years. Most people in the galaxy did not even know they existed. Back on Nexus Prime, different alien groups met in emergency sessions. The Luminari were peaceful creatures that looked like tall, thin plants. They wanted everyone to leave the station immediately. "We must evacuate," said Elder Fotis. His voice sounded like wind through leaves. "Humans are too dangerous. The old records say they are killers." But the Draknari disagreed. These aliens looked like giant lizards with sharp teeth. They were warriors who loved to fight. "I want to see these humans," growled Chieftain Groktar. "Are they really as strong as the stories say? My warriors need a good battle." Admiral Kethvar of the Korvaxi laughed at all of them. He was a tall, gray alien with cold black eyes. His people ruled much of the galaxy with fear and violence. "You are all cowards," Kethvar said. "One old human ship cannot hurt us. I will send 3 of my best cruisers to destroy them. It will be easy." On the Thunderstrike, Jake called his crew together. They met in the main hall. Humans of all ages stood before him. Some were old soldiers. Others were young people who had been born on the ship. All of them looked ready to fight. "Today we go home," Jake said. His voice was strong and clear. "Not to our old worlds. Those are gone, but we go to save our brothers and sisters who are still trapped." A young woman raised her hand. Her name was Katie Wells, and she led the fighter pilots. "Captain, what about the Korvaxi fleet?" "They will try to stop us," Jake smiled. "Let them try. We have something they do not expect. We have learned their ways. We know their ships, and we fight for something more important than victory. We fight for our family," the crew cheered. They had trained for this day for years. Every person knew their job. Every weapon was ready. The Thunderstrike might be old, but it carried the hopes of all humanity. Colonel Ryan Hayes stepped forward. He was the leader of the Marines. His soldiers were the best fighters on the ship. "Sir, my teams are ready for the rescue missions. We will bring our people home." Jake looked at all the faces around him. These people trusted him with their lives. He would not let them down. "Remember," he said, "we are not going to start a war. We are going to end one. The Korvaxi think they won 300 years ago. Today they learned they were wrong." As the ship moved closer to Nexus Prime, other aliens began to pick sides. Some remembered that humans had once been good friends. Others believed the Korvaxi lies about human evil. The Viridian Republic was a group of blue-skinned aliens who cared about honor. They secretly sent messages to the human ship. The messages had information about Korvaxi ship movements and weak points, but the Merchant Guild of Talax only cared about money. They started moving their valuable goods away from Nexus Prime. They did not want to lose profit in a battle. On the Thunderstrike's bridge, alarms began to sound. Ben Carter looked at his screens with worry. "Captain, I see Korvaxi ships moving to intercept us. 3 heavy cruisers and a dozen fighters." Jake was not surprised. "Good, that means our plan is working. Amy, how are the engines?" "Running perfectly, sir." "We can outrun them if needed." "No," Jake said firmly. "We will not run. Launch our fighters. It is time to remind the galaxy that humans are still here." Katie Wells ran to her fighter bay. Her pilots were already in their ships. These small, fast ships had been built using human skill and alien technology. They were deadly in the right hands. "All pilots, this is Katie. Today we make history. Stay close to your wingmen. Trust your training, and remember why we fight." The fighters launched into space like angry wasps. Behind them, the Thunderstrike continued toward Nexus Prime. On the station, millions of aliens watched their screens in fear and wonder. The last human ship was coming. And with it came the chance for freedom that had been lost for 3 centuries. The emergency meetings on Nexus Prime grew loud and angry. Representatives from 50 different alien species argued about what to do. The news of the approaching human ship had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Elder Fotis of the Luminari stood up tall. His plant-like body swayed as he spoke. "We must leave this place immediately. The ancient records speak of human violence. They are a plague that destroys everything." Chieftain Groktar slammed his clawed fist on the table. The Draknari warrior's eyes glowed with excitement. "You speak like a coward, plant creature. My people remember humans differently. They were strong warriors who fought with honor. I want to meet them in battle." Admiral Kethavar watched the arguing with cold amusement. The Korvaxi leader stood in his dark uniform, medals covering his chest. "Silence, all of you. This human ship is just one old vessel with desperate survivors. My cruisers will destroy it before it reaches the station." But other aliens were not so sure. Captain Zara of the Viridian Republic had been quietly studying old battle records. The blue-skinned woman stood up slowly. "Admiral, you are making a mistake. Human tactics were never simple. They used tricks and strategies that confused much larger fleets. One ship might be more dangerous than you think." Kethfar's black eyes narrowed. "The Viridians always loved these human pets. That is why your republic is weak. You let emotion cloud your judgment." In space, the first battle was already beginning. Katie Wells led her fighter squadron toward the Korvaxi intercept fleet. Her small ships moved like dancers through the darkness. "Red leader to all fighters," Katie spoke into her radio. "Remember your training. Hit them fast and get out. Do not try to be heroes." The Korvaxi fighters came at them in straight lines. Their pilots flew like machines, following old tactics that had worked for centuries. But Katie's pilots were different. They had learned to think like humans while flying alien ships. "Break formation now," Katie shouted, her fighters scattered in all directions. The Korvaxi pilots tried to follow, but the humans moved in ways they did not expect. Instead of running away, the human fighters curved around and attacked from behind. Lieutenant Danny Park shot down 2 enemy fighters in seconds. His ship rolled and twisted through space like a living thing. The Korvaxi could not hit what they could not predict. "This is impossible," radioed a Korvaxi pilot. "How are they flying like this?" Katie smiled inside her helmet. "Because we are human," she whispered. On the Thunderstrike, Captain Jake Morrison watched the battle through his screens. His ship was still hours away from the main fight, but his fighters were already showing the galaxy what humans could do. "Commander Blake, start jamming their communications," Jake ordered. Sophie Blake was the ship's expert on electronic warfare. Her fingers danced over her computer controls. She had spent years learning how alien technology worked. Now she turned that knowledge into a weapon. "Jamming in progress, sir. Their fleet coordination is breaking down." The Korvaxi cruisers began firing at empty space as their sensors showed false targets. Their pilots could not talk to each other clearly. Confusion spread through their ranks like a disease. Dr. Elena Garcia was working in her laboratory when the ship shook from distant explosions. She was the ship's expert on alien life forms. For years, she had studied every species they encountered. Today, that knowledge would be crucial. Elena activated her communication system and sent a message to Nexus Prime. She knew some aliens there would listen. Her message was simple but powerful. People of the galaxy, this is Dr. Elena Garcia of the human vessel Thunderstrike. We come not as conquerors, but as liberators. For 3 centuries, our people have been held as slaves on prison worlds throughout Corvaxi space. We fight only to free our families and return home. The message spread across the station's communication networks. Suddenly, the debate in the council chambers changed. Many aliens had not known about the prison worlds. The Corvaxi had hidden this secret carefully. Captain Zara of the Viridian stood up again. Is this true, Admiral? Do you hold human prisoners? Kethvar's face showed no emotion. The humans are dangerous criminals. They are held for the safety of the galaxy. For 300 years? Asked Elder Fotis. Even the peaceful luminary seemed shocked. Children and families held as criminals for their entire lives? Grukta growled deep in his throat. You have dishonored yourself, Corvaxi. Punishing children for their parents' crimes is the act of cowards. Back in the battle, the human fighters had destroyed half the Corvaxi squadron. Katie Wells regrouped her pilots for the next attack. But now the enemy cruisers were moving to join the fight. All fighters fall back to the Thunderstrike, Katie ordered. The big ships are coming. Her pilots turned and flew toward their home ship. But they did not run in fear. They moved with purpose, drawing the Corvaxi fleet into Captain Morrison's trap. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner prepared his boarding teams. He was in charge of special operations. His soldiers wore black armor and carried weapons that could cut through alien metal. Their mission was to capture Corvaxi officers and learn the locations of the prison worlds. Check your equipment one more time, Alex told his team. We get one chance at this. Make it count. The Thunderstrike's medical bay was ready for casualties. Dr. Lisa Thompson had everything prepared for both human and alien wounded. She did not like war, but she understood why it was necessary. How many prisoners do you think we will find? Asked her assistant, Nurse Carol Murphy. Thousands, Lisa replied sadly. Maybe tens of thousands. They have been taken from every human world that was destroyed. On Nexus Prime, the political situation was changing rapidly. Species that had been neutral were now choosing sides. The truth about the prison worlds had shocked many governments. The Centauri Alliance sent a message supporting the human cause. The Epsilon Collective offered medical aid. Even some former Corvaxi allies began to question their loyalty. Admiral Kethvar felt control slipping away. His simple plan to destroy one human ship was becoming a galactic crisis. He activated his emergency powers and declared martial law on the station. All ships will prepare for battle, he announced. Any vessel that aids the humans will be considered an enemy of the Corvaxi Empire. But his threats only made things worse. Captain Zara led the Viridian ships away from the Corvaxi fleet. Other aliens followed her example. The Grand Alliance that had ruled the galaxy for centuries was falling apart. Chief Engineer Amy Rodriguez watched her engine readings with satisfaction. The quantum drive was performing better than she had hoped. They would reach Nexus Prime with full power and weapons ready. Captain, she reported to Jake, all systems are operating at maximum efficiency. The ship is ready for whatever comes next. Jake nodded. Through his bridge windows, he could see the lights of Nexus Prime growing brighter. Soon they would be in weapons range. The real battle was about to begin. Navigator Ben Carter checked his instruments one more time. Sir, we will reach the station in 2 hours. Corvaxi reinforcements are moving to intercept us. How many ships? Jake asked. 12 cruisers, 4 destroyers, and 1 dreadnought. Jake smiled grimly. The odds were terrible, but humans had faced worse before. They had survived the Great Purge when the entire galaxy tried to destroy them. They would survive this too. All hands, this is the captain, Jake announced over the ship's speakers. We are approaching our destination. Remember why we are here. Remember who we are fighting for. Today we remind the galaxy that humans never surrender. On alien worlds across the galaxy, people watched the news broadcasts with growing interest. The return of humanity was the biggest story in centuries. Some felt fear, others felt hope, but none could look away. The last human battleship was coming home, and the galaxy would never be the same. The space around Nexus Prime filled with fire and light as the battle began. Captain Jake Morrison stood calm on his bridge while explosions lit up the darkness outside. The Corvaxi fleet had positioned itself between the Thunderstrike and the station, but Jake had expected this. Begin evasive maneuvers, Jake ordered. Do not give them an easy target. Lieutenant Ben Carter's hands moved over his controls like a pianist playing music. The massive battleship twisted and turned through space in ways that should have been impossible for such a large vessel. The Korvaxi gunners could not get a clear shot. Their main batteries are missing us by hundreds of meters, reported Weapons Officer Lieutenant Mike Foster. They are not used to targets that move like this, Jake smiled. Human ship designers had always believed that speed and agility were more important than heavy armor. The Korvaxi built their ships like floating fortresses, but fortresses could not chase what they could not catch. Fire on the lead cruiser, Jake commanded. Show them what our new weapons can do. The Thunder Strike's main guns had been rebuilt using technology from a dozen different alien species. When they fired, the energy beams were brighter and more powerful than anything the Korvaxi had seen before. The lead cruiser's shields collapsed in seconds. Its hull cracked open like an egg, venting air and debris into space. The other Korvaxi ships pulled back in surprise and fear. On Nexus Prime, millions of aliens watched the battle through their viewing screens. The sight of one human ship fighting an entire fleet was both terrifying and amazing. Commander Vexthal stood in the station's control room, his insect eyes wide with wonder. How are they doing this? One ship against so many? His aide, a young Zephyrian named Ticknell, checked the sensor readings again. Sir, their ship appears to be using our own technology against us, but they have modified it in ways we never considered. In the Korvaxi fleet command ship, Admiral Kethvar watched his carefully planned attack fall apart. His ships were built for overwhelming firepower, not for chasing a single fast target. All ships spread out and surround them, he ordered. They cannot run from all of us at once. But Jake Morrison had no intention of running. Instead, he ordered something that shocked everyone watching. Launch all boarding pods. Target the Korvaxi command ship. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner led the boarding assault. His team of 50 Marines launched in small, fast pods that flew toward the enemy dreadnought like bullets. The Korvaxi tried to shoot them down, but the pods were too small and moved too quickly. Remember the mission, Alex told his team as they flew toward the enemy ship. We need their computer files about the prison worlds. Get in, get the data, and get out. The boarding pods hit the Korvaxi ship's hull and cut through the metal with laser torches. Alex and his Marines poured into the enemy vessel, moving fast through corridors filled with surprised alien soldiers. Back on the Thunderstrike, Commander Sophie Blake was fighting a different kind of battle. Her fingers flew over computer keyboards as she attacked the Korvaxi ships with electronic weapons. I am taking control of their targeting systems, Sophie reported. Their own guns are now firing at each other. The Korvaxi fleet fell into chaos as their ships began shooting at their own allies. Explosions lit up space as friendly fire tore through their formations. Dr. Elena Garcia used this confusion to broadcast another message to the aliens on Nexus Prime. Her words reached species that had been quiet during the political debates. Citizens of the galaxy, Elena said. We offer proof of Korvaxi crimes. Our boarding teams are downloading their secret files right now. Soon you will see the truth about the prison worlds. On the station, Captain Zara of the Viridians made a historic decision. She activated her ship's weapons and targeted the Korvaxi vessels near the station. This is Captain Zara to all Viridian ships. We will not stand by while crimes against sentient life continue. Attack the Korvaxi fleet. The blue-skinned aliens had been humanity's closest friends before the Great Purge. Now they proved that friendship still existed. Viridian ships opened fire on their former allies. Chieftain Groktar of the Draknari also made his choice. The giant lizard warrior had been watching the battle with growing respect for human courage. Draknari warriors, he growled into his communicator. We have found opponents worthy of our steel. Join the humans in battle. Today we fight beside legends. The Draknari warships charged into the fight with wild battle cries. Their crews loved combat, and they had never seen anything as exciting as human tactics. Aboard the Korvaxi dreadnought, Alex Turner and his Marines reached the main computer core. Korvaxi soldiers tried to stop them, but human training and desperation made the Marines unstoppable. I have the files, shouted Sergeant Kim Lee, the team's computer expert. Downloading now. There are dozens of prison worlds, hundreds of thousands of human prisoners. Alex felt sick reading the data. Men, women, and children had been worked as slaves for generations. Many had been born in captivity and had never seen freedom. "We have what we came for," Alex announced. "All teams fall back to the extraction point." The Marines fought their way back to their boarding pods while Korvaxi reinforcements tried to stop them. 3 Marines were wounded, but all of them made it back to their ship. On the Thunderstrike's bridge, Jake watched the downloaded files appear on his screens. The locations of every prison world were now revealed. His people were scattered across half the galaxy, but now he knew where to find them. "Commander Barnes," Jake called to his communications officer, "broadcast these files to every news network in the galaxy. Let everyone see what the Korvaxi have been hiding." Commander Rachel Barnes sent the files across subspace networks with maximum priority. Within minutes, every civilized world in the galaxy could see the evidence of Korvaxi crimes. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Governments that had supported the Korvaxi Empire began emergency sessions. Protests erupted on 100 worlds. The carefully maintained order of galactic politics collapsed in hours. On Nexus Prime, Elder Photis of the Luminari stood before the council with tears in his large plant eyes. "We have been blind to this evil for too long. The Luminari Republic formally recognizes the human government in exile and offers our full support." Even some Korvaxi officers began to question their orders. Commander Veltar of the cruiser Dark Wind sent a secret message to the human ship. "Captain Morrison, this is Commander Veltar. I cannot speak for my empire, but I can speak for myself. What my people have done is wrong. I will not fire on your ship." Jake was surprised by the message, but he understood that not all Korvaxi were evil. Some were just following orders they had never questioned. Admiral Kethvar saw his fleet falling apart around him. Ships were defecting or refusing to fight. His own officers were looking at him with doubt and fear. "All remaining loyal vessels," he broadcast. "If we cannot stop the humans here, we will make them pay elsewhere. Activate the planet killer weapons." The threat sent ice through Jake's heart. Planet killer weapons could destroy entire worlds in minutes. If the Korvaxi used them on the prison worlds, millions of humans would die before they could be rescued. "Captain," reported Navigator Ben Carter, "long-range sensors show Korvaxi ships moving toward the prison worlds. They are carrying the big weapons." Jake knew he had to make an impossible choice. He could stay and fight the remaining fleet around Nexus Prime, or he could race to protect the prison worlds, but he could not do both. Dr. Lisa Thompson came to the bridge with medical reports. "Jake, we have wounded from the boarding mission." But Alex's team also brought back something else. Prisoners from the Korvaxi ship. 3 humans who were being transported to another prison world. Jake's heart stopped. After 3 centuries, they had found living humans in Korvaxi hands. He ran to the medical bay to see them himself. The 3 prisoners were thin and weak but alive. An old man named Robert Davis had been captured as a child during the Great Purge. A middle-aged woman named Helen Carter had been born in prison. A young man named Paul Anderson had never seen a free human until today. "Are you really here to save us?" Helen asked with tears in her eyes. "We have hoped for so long that someone would come." Jake knelt beside her bed and took her hand. "Yes, we are here, and we are going to save everyone. I promise you that." But even as he spoke the words, Jake wondered if he could keep that promise. The Korvaxi had planet-killer weapons and the will to use them. The race to save humanity had become a race against time itself. Captain Jake Morrison faced the hardest decision of his life. Through the bridge windows, he could see Nexus Prime Station with its millions of innocent aliens. Behind him, the rescued human prisoners lay in the medical bay, proof that their people were still alive. And somewhere in space, Korvaxi ships carried weapons that could destroy entire worlds. "Captain," reported Commander Nathan Brooks from the intelligence station, "we have confirmed movement of 12 Korvaxi vessels toward the prison worlds. Each ship carries a planet-killer weapon." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. If those weapons reached their targets, every human prisoner would die. Hundreds of thousands of people who had waited 3 centuries for rescue would be murdered in an instant. "Sir," said Lieutenant Ben Carter quietly, "there is something else. The Korvaxi dreadnought near the station is charging its main weapon. They are targeting Nexus Prime itself." Jake opened his eyes and looked at the tactical display. Admiral Kethvar was going to destroy the station rather than let it fall into human hands. 5 million aliens would die just to deny humanity a victory. The bridge fell silent as everyone understood the impossible choice: save the station or save the prison worlds, save aliens who had become their friends or save humans who were their family. Jake thought about the 3 prisoners in the medical bay. Robert Davis had spent his entire life dreaming of freedom. Helen Carter had never seen a sunset without prison walls. Paul Anderson had never heard human music or tasted human food, but he also thought about Commander Vexthol and the other aliens who had begun to trust humanity. Captain Zara had risked her career to help them. Chieftain Groktar had chosen honor over politics. Even some Korvaxi officers had turned against their own empire. "All hands, this is the captain," Jake announced over the ship's speakers. "We came here to rescue our people and we will not abandon that mission. But we will not abandon our new friends either. Prepare for ramming speed." The crew understood immediately. Jake was going to ram the Korvaxi dreadnought and stop it from destroying the station. It would likely destroy the Thunderstrike as well, but it would save 5 million lives. "Captain, no," protested Dr. Lisa Thompson over the intercom. "There has to be another way." "This is the way," Jake replied sadly. "Amy, give me everything the engines have got." Chief Engineer Amy Rodriguez felt tears in her eyes as she pushed the quantum drive to maximum power. She had worked for years to make this ship perfect. Now she was going to watch it die. "Engines at 110%, she reported. "We will reach the enemy ship in 3 minutes." But before the Thunderstrike could complete its suicide run, something unexpected happened. Ships from a dozen different alien species moved between the human battleship and its target. "Human vessel, this is Captain Zara of the Viridian Republic," came a transmission. "We will not let you sacrifice yourselves alone. All Allied ships target the Korvaxi dreadnought. The space around Nexus Prime filled with weapons fire as former enemies became allies. Viridian ships fought beside Draknari warriors. Luminari vessels fired alongside Centauri cruisers. Even some merchant ships joined the attack." "Jake," said Commander Rachel Barnes, "we are receiving support from 37 different species. They are calling it the Freedom Alliance." Jake felt hope return to his heart. But the real test was still ahead. While this battle raged, Korvaxi ships were racing toward the prison worlds with their terrible weapons. "Split the fleet," Jake ordered. "Half stays here to protect the station. Half comes with us to the prison worlds." It was still a desperate plan. Even with alien allies, they would be outnumbered at every battle. But Jake had learned something important today. Courage was contagious. When people saw others willing to sacrifice everything for what was right, they wanted to help. The Thunderstrike and 15 Allied ships jumped to hyperspace, racing toward the nearest prison world. Behind them, Captain Zara led the defense of Nexus Prime. The first prison world was called Torment by its Korvaxi guards. It had once been a beautiful planet with blue oceans and green forests. Now it was covered with gray factories where human slaves worked until they died. "Long-range sensors show 2 Korvaxi ships approaching the planet," reported Lieutenant Mike Foster. "They will arrive in 20 minutes. Jake knew they would be cutting it close. But Master Sergeant Maria Santos and her Marine teams were already preparing for the ground assault. They had studied the prison layouts from the captured files. "Maria, you will have maybe 1 hour to evacuate as many people as possible," Jake told her. "Take the children and elderly first." Maria nodded grimly. She was a small woman, but her Marines would follow her into hell if she asked. "We will bring them home, sir. All of them." The Thunderstrike dropped out of hyperspace just as the Korvaxi ships entered the planet's atmosphere. The human battleship immediately opened fire, destroying one enemy vessel before it could react. But the second Korvaxi ship reached the planet's surface and began charging its planet-killer weapon. Jake had minutes to stop it before every human on the world would die. "Ben, take us down." "Amy, I need landing thrusters." "Sir?" "We are not designed for atmospheric flight," Amy protested. "Make it work," Jake ordered. The massive battleship screamed through the planet's sky like a falling star. Its hull glowed red from the heat and several systems failed from the stress. But Amy's modifications held, and the ship reached the surface intact. Marine dropships launched immediately. Maria Santos led the first wave toward the largest prison complex. What she found there broke her heart and filled her with rage. Thousands of humans lived in conditions worse than animals. They were thin and sick, dressed in rags, and many had never seen sunlight. Children who should have been playing were working in dangerous factories. "This is Santos to all teams," she radioed. "Forget the plan. Save everyone you can. Use stun weapons on any guards who resist." The Marines spread out across the prison complex with grim efficiency. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. Some guards tried to fight, But human soldiers fighting for their families were unstoppable. In one building, Maria found an old woman sitting alone in a dark cell. The woman looked up with eyes that had given up hope long ago. "Are you real?" the woman whispered. "Or am I dreaming again?" Maria knelt down and took the woman's hands. "I am real. My name is Maria Santos, and I am here to take you home." The woman began to cry. Her name was Dorothy Wilson, and she had been a teacher before the Great Purge. For 70 years, she had told stories to prisoner children about the day when humans would come to save them. Across the planet, similar scenes played out in dozens of prisons. Families were reunited after decades of separation. Children met their grandparents for the first time. Old people who had given up hope found reasons to live again, but time was running out. The surviving Korvaxi ship had finished charging its weapon. Jake ordered the Thunderstrike to attack, but the enemy vessel was protected by powerful shields. "We cannot penetrate their defenses," reported Mike Foster. "The planet killer will fire in 5 minutes." Jake made another desperate decision. "Amy, can you overload our main reactor?" Amy understood immediately. "If I do that, the explosion will destroy both ships, and probably everything within 100 kilometers. Do it, but first get our people off the planet." The evacuation ships launched in a panic. Marines carried unconscious prisoners who were too weak to walk. Children who had never been outside suddenly found themselves flying toward the stars. Maria Santos was the last Marine to leave the surface. She looked back at the planet where so many humans had suffered for so long. Today they had saved 8,000 people. It was not everyone, but it was a start. The Thunderstrike's reactor reached critical levels just as the Korvaxi ship fired its planet-killer weapon. The two explosions happened at the same time, creating a flash of light that could be seen from space. When the light faded, both ships were gone. But the planet remained intact and 8,000 former slaves were free. On other worlds, similar battles raged. Human ships and their alien allies fought desperate actions against Korvaxi forces. Not every planet could be saved, but more humans were rescued every hour. The news of the prison world liberation spread across the galaxy faster than light. On every civilized world, people watched former slaves take their first steps as free beings. The images were more powerful than any weapon. Dr. Elena Garcia worked day and night to help the rescued prisoners adjust to freedom. Many of them had never been outside a prison. Some had forgotten how to make simple choices about food or clothing. "It will take time," Elena told Jake as they watched former prisoners learning to use eating utensils. "Some of these people have been slaves for their entire lives. Freedom will be frightening at first." Jake nodded. The rescue mission was only the beginning. Now they had to help their people remember how to be human. But as he watched children playing for the first time in their lives, Jake knew the sacrifice had been worth it. The Thunderstrike was gone, but humanity had found something more valuable than any ship. They had found hope. The news of Captain Jake Morrison's sacrifice spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The destruction of the Thunderstrike had saved not just one planet, but had inspired a revolution that would change everything. On Nexus Prime, Admiral Kethavar watched his empire crumble around him. Half of his fleet had defected to the Freedom Alliance. The other half was scattered across the galaxy, fighting desperate battles against former allies who now saw the truth about Korvaxi crimes. "Sir," reported his aide nervously, "we are receiving surrender offers from 12 colonial governors. They no longer wish to serve the Empire." Kethavar's cold black eyes showed no emotion, but inside he felt panic. The humans had done more than rescue their people. They had shown the galaxy that the mighty Korvaxi could be defeated. "Activate the final protocol," he ordered quietly. His aide went pale. The final protocol meant using planet-killer weapons on every world that refused to obey. It would mean the deaths of billions of innocent people. "Sir, that would be genocide. Our own people live on many of those worlds." "Better dead than defeated," Kethavar replied coldly. But when he gave the order, something unexpected happened. His own officers refused to obey. Commander Veltar, who had secretly helped the humans, stepped forward with a group of junior officers. "Admiral, I cannot follow that order. It is against everything we swore to protect." Kethavar reached for his weapon, but it was too late. His own crew had turned against him. The revolution had reached even the heart of the Korvaxi fleet. Light years away, the rescued prisoners from the destroyed planet were learning what freedom meant. Aboard the alien ships that had evacuated them, Humans touched real food for the first time, saw entertainment programs, and heard music that was not work songs. Dorothy Wilson, the old teacher, sat with a group of children who had been born in prison. She was telling them about Earth, the legendary homeworld that most humans had never seen. Before the war, she said softly, humans lived on a blue and green planet with great cities and wild forests. There were schools where children learned about art and science instead of just work. A little girl named Emma raised her hand. "Will we ever see Earth, Grandma Dorothy?" Dorothy smiled. She had been called Grandma by hundreds of children over the years, even though she had never had children of her own. "Maybe someday, little one. But first, we must help build a new home for all humans." Meanwhile, the Freedom Alliance was growing stronger every day. Captain Zara had been elected as the military commander of the Allied fleet. Chieftain Groktar led the ground forces. Even some former Korvaxi officers had joined their cause. "We have liberated 17 prison worlds," Zara reported during a strategy meeting. "Over 200,000 humans have been freed. But there are still dozens of planets under Korvaxi control. The war was far from over, but the tide had turned. For every planet the Korvaxi destroyed, 3 more joined the Freedom Alliance. The empire that had ruled through fear was learning that hope was more powerful than terror. Dr. Elena Garcia found herself serving as humanity's unofficial ambassador to the galaxy. She worked with alien leaders to establish refugee camps and medical facilities for the rescued prisoners. "Many of our people will need years of therapy," she explained to a gathering of alien doctors. "They have been traumatized by generations of slavery. But humans are resilient. We will heal and we will rebuild." Some of the rescued humans had unexpected skills. Robert Davis, the old man who had been captured as a child, turned out to be a brilliant engineer. He began working with Amy Rodriguez's surviving engineering teams to design new ships for the growing human fleet. "I spent 70 years fixing broken machines in prison," Robert explained. "Now I want to build something beautiful." Helen Carter, who had been born in captivity, became a leader among the former prisoners. She organized support groups and helped other survivors adjust to freedom. "We must not let hatred consume us," she told a gathering of former slaves. "The Korvaxi took our freedom, but they cannot take our humanity. We must be better than they were." Paul Anderson, the young man who had never seen freedom, became a symbol of hope for the galaxy. His first words as a free person had been broadcast across space. "Thank you for not forgetting us." The final battle of the war came sooner than expected. Kethavar, desperate to salvage something from his collapsing empire, gathered the remaining loyal ships for one last attack on Nexus Prime. But when his fleet arrived, they found something that shocked them. The station was defended not just by alien ships but by a new human vessel. The survivors from the Thunderstrike had worked with their allies to build a replacement battleship. They called it the UES Freedom, and it carried the hopes of every rescued prisoner. The battle was short but fierce. Kethavar's ships fought with the desperation of the doomed, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. More importantly, they were fighting people who had found something worth dying for. Master Sergeant Maria Santos led a boarding party onto Kethavar's flagship. She had survived the destruction of the Thunderstrike and had volunteered to capture the admiral who had caused so much suffering. "Admiral Kethavar," she said when she found him in his command center, "by the authority of the Freedom Alliance, you are under arrest for crimes against sentient life." Kethavar looked at the small human woman and laughed. "You think this is over? You think killing me will bring back your dead worlds?" Maria smiled grimly. "No, it will not bring them back, but it will make sure this never happens again." The trial of Admiral Kethavar became the most watched event in galactic history. Representatives from every civilized species came to Nexus Prime to witness justice being served. The evidence of Korvaxi crimes was overwhelming, and the verdict was unanimous. But the humans surprised everyone with their request for punishment. Instead of execution, they asked that Kethavar be sent to work in the rehabilitation camps where former prisoners were learning to rebuild their lives. "Let him see what we are building," said Helen Carter, who testified at the trial. "Let him understand that freedom is stronger than fear." Years passed and the galaxy began to heal. The Korvaxi Empire was dissolved and replaced by a democratic federation, where every species had an equal voice. The prison worlds became memorial sites and schools where children learned about the importance of freedom. Captain Jake Morrison was remembered as the hero who started it all. But the real heroes were the ordinary people who chose to do what was right. Alien crews who risked their lives to save strangers. Prisoners who kept hope alive in the darkest places. Engineers who built ships for people they had never met. Dorothy Wilson lived to see the establishment of the first new human colony. It was built on a planet donated by the Viridian Republic, and it welcomed not just humans but members of any species who wanted to live in freedom. She stood in the colony's first school, watching children of a dozen different species learning together. Human children sat next to Viridian youngsters and Draknari cubs. They were all learning the same lesson, that differences made them stronger, not weaker. "What are you thinking about, Grandma Dorothy?" asked Emma, who was now a teenager and one of Dorothy's best students. Dorothy smiled as she watched the sunset paint the sky in colors she had almost forgotten existed. "I am thinking about tomorrow, dear one. For the first time in my life, I cannot wait to see what tomorrow will bring." At the colony's spaceport, a monument stood to honor all those who had died fighting for freedom. It was made from metal salvaged from the thunderstrike, and its inscription was simple: "They gave their lives so that others might live free." May we never forget the price of liberty or the courage of those who pay it. But the most important monument was not made of metal or stone. It was the laughter of children who had never known slavery, the dreams of young people who could choose their own futures, and the hope of every being in the galaxy who believed that tomorrow could be better than today. The last human battleship had brought destruction, just as the Korvaxi had feared. But it had destroyed only hatred and oppression. In their place, it had built something far more powerful. A galaxy where freedom was not just a dream, but a right that belonged to everyone. And in the schools where children learned about the past, teachers always ended the story the same way. "Remember, young ones, that even in the darkest night, the dawn always comes, and sometimes it comes carried by those who refuse to give up hope."